Kelly Vaughn, and this is Inside Indy. And today we're going to talk about your credit score, your credit record. Can your credit be repaired? We have an expert in the studio with us this evening. She is Victoria Finch. She is a transformational life coach, a speaker, author, and obviously a credit guru. Say hello to Victoria Finch. Hi.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Wow, I hope I can live up to all of that.
I am so impressed with what I saw on Facebook. And I found you and I said, oh, I got to have her in on Inside Indy because, you know, that whole credit thing, everybody has questions about it. Everybody can relate to credit issues.
That's right, yes.
So, but could you begin by telling us why having good credit is important? Because I can remember being almost like 40 years of age when I finally realized that, because that's not something they taught you at Broad Ripple High School.
That's right. And even now, they have programs at school, but it really doesn't teach you what to do. It's really a overview. But credit affects so many areas of our lives. Personally, financially, what I found in my practice was that people with credit, they felt bad. You have kind of low self-esteem. So we attach ourselves to that 3-digit number, which is really designed to tell you how likely you are to be 90 days or more late on any given account. That's really what a credit score is. But it affects where you go to school, where your children can go to school. It affects whether or not you can own a home. So that means it affects where you live, even apartment complexes. It also can affect employment in certain situations. Luckily, a lot of the states have banned people losing jobs because of credit. It has to be a certain type of
Would
job.
nobody have a job? I'm kidding.
Yeah, well, they found that it was discriminatory. And so a lot of states moved away from using credit for employment. So it just affects a lot of major areas of our lives. School, education, housing, employment. I mean, that's pretty big.
Yeah. So it makes you wonder why they haven't, especially in the past, included that in our curriculum, considering we are concerned about our SAT scores.
Yes.
And we're going to college so that we can make more money.
Yes.
And we're getting an education, a high school diploma, because we're trying to make some money.
Yes.
But you don't talk about credit scores at all. I didn't even know what it was.
Well, not only do they not talk about it in the schools, but homes don't talk about budgets. Typically, mom, dad, they pay the bills, and we aren't taught that even in the home. It's almost like hush-hush. It's like you turn on the light, it comes on. We, as a society, need to really start teaching our children about good credit at home. Sometimes we depend too much on the educational system that we currently have, and it has failed us, especially when it comes to credit and finance, right? That's why so many Americans have credit issues.
So why do you think it isn't taught in the home? What?
I think that finances in general, I see it changing. I do see it changing. I think mom and dad just kind of do what mom and dad does. And they don't really talk to the kids about it. I grew up with, turn those lights off,
Yeah, that's what my dad said, turn the light off.
You kind of grew up with that, but you really didn't know what it took to run a household. When my children started at a very young age, probably 10, 11, they started to know exactly how much it took to run our household. And they understood the value of turning off that light.
I bet you drove them crazy.
Oh, God, yeah. It's
Being an expert.
It's like, of all the moms, why'd I get you?
Yeah. Wow, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. You're right, though. That's what my dad used to say, to cut the lights out. He did teach me how to read the stock market.
Well, there you have it.
But that was because he had General Motors stock. And so I didn't read like a whole thing. I'd read about General Motors. I knew when it was up or down. I didn't know that even probably at the age of 18.
Right.
But beyond that, no, there wasn't a lot about that. And I didn't learn the importance of, in fact, let me say this, what I think most people think, it's about how much money you make. So since I, right out of college, had a job, and most things other than, say, a house, and then when I was married, my husband was in the military, so you didn't need a down payment,
Yeah.
So that kind of just went right by me, that whole thing about, having the scores to get the house and and there was always money, so it was like I don't really need to borrow. So, and some people shy away from credit because they don't want to get in that game.
Right.
But it's almost necessary to.
Well, you know, credit's not bad. It's the misuse of credit that gets you in trouble. In fact, you really should have credit. Everyone should have some credit established. At 10% of your credit score is based upon the types of accounts you have. You know, a mortgage, a card, no more than about 3 credit cards. Also, an installment loan is good to have to optimize your credit. Just because you have credit, that doesn't mean you have to continue using it. So what I teach people is to keep your credit cards active, what you normally pay your debit card or cash to get gas, go ahead and put that small amount on your credit cards and then keep very small balances or pay them off. So we aren't taught those little tricks as we're growing up. Quite honestly, I'm not sure, how does that come up in a home? Think about it, right? Hey, when you're 18, make sure you do this with your credit cards, right? How does that conversation even come up?
Right.
Unless you're intentional about it.
Right. And of course, once you hit the college campus, you know, American Express, they're waiting for you.
Oh my God, my son's at the University of Cincinnati right now, and I tell you what, Discover is getting on my last dang on nerves.
Oh, okay.
Because they keep trying to give them cards, trying to,
they're trying to reach that audience because they know they're getting ready to come into some money.
Exactly.
In any case, so I guess let's talk about repairing credit.
Yes.
And you see these ads, people are saying, we can repair your credit. What does that really mean, that repairing credit?
Well, the Fair and Accurate Credit Transaction Act, FACTCA, has a division, which is the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And according to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, anything that's on your credit bureau must be accurate, timely reported, and it also must be timely, accurate, timely reported, and correct. So what ends up happening is that they don't report things correctly. One government study says more than 25% of credit reports have errors in them. Some of these reports have come as high as 35%. So when you think about the populace, and this is going to affect my home, this is going to affect my education, this is going to affect my employment, that's pretty huge.
Right.
That's pretty huge. So the government stepped in and said, hey, if you're going to report on the credit, you must do it accurately. It must be timely reported.
Okay.
And verifiable, which is the other word I couldn't come up with.
Oh, no, but you found it.
Yeah, I found it.
But how do they get by with it? Now, we're talking about TransUnion, Experian,
and Equifax. Yes.
Okay. See how I know them?
That's
I haven't
right.
used them lately, but I know them.
Now, what do you mean by how did they get away with it?
How do they get away with that? Because let me give you an example. Right now, I looked at my credit record maybe a year ago or so, and we'll talk about how often we should, but I noticed that the first home I bought in 1986 is not on there. Okay. And then I read these little credit tips that says the biggest part of your credit history is your history, that the deeper the history is what affects your score. Well, they've got me down for about 16 years, even though I built the house that I have now 18 years ago. I'm not sure how they did that.
Right.
But there's another 14 years missing with another mortgage on there.
Well, typically things stay on your credit report 7 years from the date of last activity.
But I want
so
that.
Sometimes, I know.
Because you look at a kid out of college and they got a year, and I've got 16 years, or if I got 25 years, to me, the deeper the history, especially for something like a mortgage.
Well, typically, if you've got a credit history of 10, 15 years, going back 20 years is really irrelevant for your score. It's not going to do anything for your score. So I understand what you're saying, but it really doesn't matter. What really, the greatest impact on your score are the last 24 months. That's going to hit your score harder than anything. So something that's 10, 20 years back, it really doesn't affect your score as much.
And I don't know that the history of it, but just that your history goes back that far. And they're saying my credit history is only 16 years. And if the depth of your history, you know, you guys might have been doing stuff for 50 years, and if that counts, not necessarily the details, but just that I've been in business, whatever I'm doing.
But it reaches a point where it doesn't count.
Okay,
that's my point.
I'm just saying.
You see what I'm saying?
I just saw something that
says
says
the same thing with inquiries as well. Inquiries can stay on your credit report up to 2 years, but they actually only affect your credit report. They only affect it for 12 months. So if you have inquiries that are 5 years old, it really doesn't matter because it's not calculated in your score.
Okay. Well, so let's say, and I have found mistakes on mine before too. So you have this mistake. and then it's affecting my score, which is affecting my ability to get a loan or whatever my interest rate is.
Right.
So like, say I just did a loan, say 3 years ago, and I find later there's something on there, maybe I could have gotten a lower score because of something they did wrong. And I'm saying, how do they get by? To me, they need to pay the difference.
Well, you have to challenge it, which a lot of people think that credit repair is illegal. It is not illegal. What's illegal is to say that's not mine, and you know it's really yours. Then that's illegal because you're lying, right? But they get away with it because they take the information that the furnisher gives. And the furnisher would be, I have a credit report, and let's say someone owes a cable company, but it has gone to collection because they didn't turn in the box, which I see all the time, right? So that cable company reports that as a collection against a credit report. You may have turned in the box, but they didn't give you credit for it. If you don't challenge that, nobody really knows. So you have to be diligent and look at your credit. It really becomes our responsibility, unfortunately.
Okay, we're going to
So that's kind of how they get away with it.
Okay.
People don't challenge
I'm mad about
enough.
it.
People don't challenge enough.
Okay, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about how to fix our credit and how to get my personal scores up. Since you're here, then I'm going to pick your brain after this.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
And we're back here on Inside Indy, and you're probably wondering why I'm smiling. It's because Victoria Finch is here, and she's going to help me and you raise your credit scores. How do we do it, Victoria?
Well, first of all, you need to get a copy of your credit report. And this is where a lot of people don't understand that they need to get them from the credit bureaus. You need to go Experian, you need to go to Equifax, you need to go to TransUnion and get your credit reports. You can get a free report every year, and I suggest everyone does that from annualcreditreport.com. As an expert, I don't like using that credit report because that mortgage you talked about that was 16 years old is probably on there. So there's a lot of...
found it, but go ahead.
but you can go to annualcreditreport.com and you can get a free credit report every year so that you can check your credit and see what's going on with it. But you do want to go directly to the credit bureaus because when your credit is being pulled by a mortgage company or an employer, that's where they go. They don't go to a lot of these outside. I have to be careful with my terminology because we have words in the industry that aren't always polite. But a consumer credit score is not the same credit score that you're going to get when you apply for a mortgage or when you apply for an automobile or when you apply for a student loan. The reason for that is because they use a different logarithm. Why is that? Why is it when you go to some of these companies that aren't directly with the bureaus, you get a different score than what your mortgage company gives you? The reason for is because the mortgage companies are concerned with certain items on your credit.
Okay.
And so the credit bureaus understand this. And by the way, the bureaus are not government agencies. They're actually repositories. But the word bureau has been used commonplace, but they're actually called repositories. But anyway, so what you want to do is you want to get them from the bureau because you can get a closer idea with my FICO by getting from the bureaus than you can from some of these other companies that are out there. These credit monitoring companies, they don't give you true FICO score unless they say this is a FICO score. And what complicates it even more is it depends on which FICO score they're using. Because there's so many scores that are figured so many different ways, and people get really upset when they go to get a house and they are looking at a 580 when they pulled from one of these third-party credit reporting places and it was a 640. So you have to understand that it's not the same credit score. It's not figured the same way.
Wow. Okay, that's good to know because a lot of people are. What's the one that there's always a commercial about it? Creditguru.com. Or, you know, there's so many of them where they're services that you can go on there and it doesn't hurt your record.
Well, anytime you pull, credit inquiries are 10% of your credit score. Anytime you pull your own credit report, it will not affect your score.
Okay. 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 Wow. Okay. So this we're talking about scores. What's a good score? What's a bad score? How do we get what we want? What do we need to get what we want?
Well, and then this is where it gets interesting too. If you want to go to a car dealership to get a car, you typically need at least a 600 credit score.
Okay.
That's not necessarily the best score, and that's not going to get you the best rates, but it would get you into a car. To get a home, you can have as low as a 580 credit score to buy a house, believe it or not. It takes you more to get a car than it does a house. Think about it. Houses appreciate, cars depreciate. So you got to have a little better credit for that. So when you're looking at a good score versus a bad score, 680 and above would be considered good. That's when you can typically qualify for the much better interest rates. A lot of times, if you're buying a home, depending on income, you can apply for down payment assistance. So that's considered a good score. A 620, when you get above a 620, you start getting a little better rates. So you really want to keep your credit score obviously as high as you can get. But obviously, if you got a 700, you're pretty much golden.
Okay. So and the highest you can go is what?
850.
Okay. So who has an 850? What is that person like?
I've never seen one. The highest credit
You've
score.
never seen it?
The highest credit score I've ever seen was an 826.
And what tell us about, not them personally, but what?
They had the right mix of credit. They had the right history of credit. How you pay your bill is how you pay your accounts is 35% of your credit. So they paid on time. They may have paid a little extra along the way. They also
Does that help to pay more than what's due? Does that affect it?
Not so much. It used to.
Okay.
Now it really doesn't. Mortgage companies, though, when they pull your mortgage credit report, residential credit report for a mortgage, they can see if you've paid extra. It doesn't necessarily affect their score, but it can help between getting a loan at a better interest rate and not.
Okay.
But it doesn't really affect the score anymore.
Wow.
So 35% of your credit score is how you pay your bill. 30% of your credit score is your liabilities versus if you've maxed out cards. Your liabilities versus credit limit. So that's really important. So the top things that you really want to do to concentrate on your credit, don't get a lot of inquiries that are unnecessary. Make sure you pay your bills on time. You want to make sure you have the right mix of credit. You don't need 20 credit cards, okay? Because that can hurt you too. And there's a difference between a credit card and a charge card and how it affects your credit. A charge card is usually a store credit card. A credit card is usually your MasterCard, Visa. And last I checked, I don't deal a lot with Diners Club, but believe it or not, at one point they were not considered credit cards. So
if you have, I don't know, like Home Depot, I don't think they're drawn
yeah,
on a bank.
those are considered charge cards.
So those don't affect, they don't
They
help
do
your
affect
score?
your credit score, but the MasterCard, Visa, American Express, those cards are better to have. It's kind of like the difference also when you're looking at personal loans. When you go to personal finance companies, they don't affect your score as well as getting a bank loan. That all goes into the logarithms.
Okay. Okay. You know, I'm a little familiar with Fair Isaac, which is what the credit score system is based on. And so when we all went through the economic tsunami of 2005/2008, and years ago I just had phenomenal scores, and then you lose your job. And what frustrated me in that was that obviously if your income changes, it may affect how you're able to pay your bills. But if you have a 750 score, that meant that it was more about they're looking at how you're paying inconsistently. if I lose my job, that is not indicative of how I pay my bills. That's just I can't pay my bills. That's a change in income. And to what I've found with Fair Isaac, it doesn't measure that. It just looks at, okay, you don't have any money, you can't pay. That's not, you got NBA players that got millions of dollars, don't pay their bills on time. So it's not about what you, it's not about how much money you have, it's whether you pay consistently. And so I just didn't think that was fair. And then when you get back on your feet and you got your money after the tsunami, okay, then you start to pay consistently, then your score goes back, but it didn't give you credit for what, because that's not measuring truly what you're measuring, which is, does he or she pay their bills on a consistent basis? And not having money is not necessarily a part of that formula.
Well, that's the willingness to pay. So basically, what they're looking at is whether or not you have the willingness to pay. And the fact that you lost your job is unfortunate, and I see this a lot too. But they're still looking at those payments coming in, unfortunately.
Right. And what they should do, my theory on that is, since that person had a good history, that's saying the job is lost, so those scores are averaged to allow them time to adjust. And then maybe after, if it went 2 or 3 years, then okay, maybe they bottomed out. But it should be an average of that. And that way it is counting that person's willingness is willingness to pay.
That's a difficult thing to do when you think about the billions of credit reports that are out there in the scores.
They get ours wrong all the time.
But there's one thing, though, I will make a comment of quickly. You can put out 150-word statement on your credit report stating, I had a job loss at this time, and whatever that situation is. I will tell you, you have the right to do that. I typically am not a fan of that because you lose your job, you can't pay. Then you get a job and you pay, and then you lose your job again and you can't pay. And then now they're looking at, well, you may not be the best person to keep getting credit, and why aren't you being more conservative instead of getting another 10 credit cards? So those don't always help.
Okay, we're going to do a quick quiz here, and just with a couple of answer.
I'm not good at test taking.
Will paying off a collection remove it from your credit report?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Not unless it doesn't meet the 3. It can't be verified, it's inaccurate, or it's too old.
Okay. How long do items stay on the credit report?
Up to 7 years. Bankruptcy, it's Chapter 13, can stay up there up to 7 years from the date of the filing. For a Chapter 7, it can stay on your report for up to 10 years.
How long will bankruptcy affect my credit?
Bankruptcy affects your credit. I've seen it affect, depending on the whole credit, I've seen it affect credit up to 5 years. Okay. But 2 years, you can establish and get your credit score back up.
Okay, and we've got to go. We've got just 30 seconds. I know you've launched Victoria Finch International. Briefly tell me what that is.
Yes, at Victoria Finch International, what we do is we help you identify and ignite your life's purpose.
All right. Okay. We're going to have you back because I got more questions. I'm out of time. Victoria Finch, transformational life coach, speaker, author, and credit guru. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, thank you. I did too.
Thank you
for joining us. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, she'll be back. And thank you for watching. I'm Kelly Vaughn. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Habitat for Missions invites you to join us in making a difference in your community and beyond. As we celebrate the hundreds of thousands of new resources raised and unleashed in the kingdom, we invite your church to partner with Habitat for Missions. We have been supporting missionaries, planting new churches, building a vocational school in Uganda, helping young girls in India to have a safe place to live and learn, investing in at-risk teens in South Bend, Indiana, and much more. We're moving houses, renovating houses, and unleashing brand new resources in communities across America. Partnering with HFM helps build community in your church or organization. It promotes your ministry to the community, and it gives your church an opportunity to have new resources for the mission that motivates you. Habitat for Missions, investing in lives, one house flip at a time.
Bye, Janet. It's nice seeing you again. You look good, girl. Just let me know what I can do to help.
Well, to help me, she'd have to help every day. Every hour, every ouch, every time my wife calls for help. I mean, maybe she could help me make her lunch, but the crust, all the crust has to be cut off the corners. She could help me run to the doctor for the 5th time this week. Help me with the specialist and the second opinions and the painful paperwork about paperwork. Help me deal with how hard it is seeing my wife's name on so much paperwork. But this is on me. I'm the only one who can do this, like this, for her. Besides,
Take care.
we will. Janet doesn't like her cooking anyway.
Find support for your strength. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community.
1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your favorite brother, your other brother, you, your football buddy, your football buddy, you, the boss's boss. If 1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes, that means it could be you, your barber, your barber's barber.
Nice work.
Thanks.
You, your plumber,
Breathe right into your foot.
your plumber's masseuse.
Yes.
You, your dog walker,
On your left.
your cat jogger. Or you, your co-pilot, your co-pilot's co-pilot. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes and you come to mine. This is it, first impression, my way in. But can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or being the first one to always step up. No, that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent that is dedicated, hardworking, and determined like me.